I've learned one thing at family gatherings. Adult honor shatters over small details. A glance, a trembling fingernail, a camera click. At that lakeside picnic, my stepfather demolished his own reputation while thinking everyone was laughing, distracted, oblivious. He didn't know someone held a camera at the right angle, in the right light, at the right moment, and metadata doesn't lie. He also didn't know I work in legal compliance. My name is Avery Hale, and I've spent the last 7 years ensuring that pharmaceutical companies follow the rules. At 31, divorced, childless by choice, I live alone in a one-bedroom apartment in Fairmont Ridge, where I can see the city's construction cranes from my window. Those cranes belong to men like my stepfather, Ray Kincaid, who runs Kincaid Builders and Site Works and is currently campaigning for a seat on the County Planning Commission. In my family, there's always been an unspoken law. Ray sits at the center, my mother Linda smooths the edges, and everyone else follows the current. I'm the one who knows too much law and speaks too plainly, as my cousin put it last Thanksgiving. They say it like it's a character flaw. My mother married Ray when I was 19, old enough to see him clearly, but young enough that he still tried to play father. Now, 12 years later, he's perfected his public persona. The successful contractor who built half of downtown, the family man who hosts barbecues, the future commissioner who'll bring common sense to government. But I work in compliance. I notice patterns. 3 months ago, while reviewing safety protocols at Northbridge Therapeutics, I stumbled across public county records during my lunch break. Ray's company had won a string of contracts, and something felt off about the safety reports. The language was too similar across different projects, identical phrases, matching typos, even the same last updated timestamps on supposedly separate inspections. I downloaded the files, cross-referenced them with OSHA databases, found discrepancies between his reported 0 lost time incidents and workers' compensation claims filed with the state. The careful copy-paste job might fool a harried municipal clerk, but not someone who spends 60 hours a week hunting for regulatory violations. "You're obsessed with finding fault," my mother had said when I mentioned, carefully, generally, that contractors sometimes cut corners on documentation. "I'm obsessed with accuracy," I'd replied. She'd sighed, refilling her wine glass. "Ray works hard for this family. Try to appreciate that." This family, as if his money had somehow purchased my loyalty along with my mother's house renovation and her new SUV. I kept the files, organized them in a secure folder on my personal laptop, backed up to an encrypted cloud service, not to use, not yet. But because in my world, documentation is everything, you never know when you'll need proof. Ray didn't know I had those files when he glad-handed his way through the Memorial Day barbecue, talking about bringing transparency to county government. He didn't know I'd noticed the metadata showing his site inspection photos were taken on days his own social media placed him at golf tournaments 2 states away. He didn't know that I'd learned to bide my time from the very job he mocked at family dinners. "Avery pushes papers for a living," he'd say, getting laughs from relatives who didn't understand that those papers could end careers, bankrupt companies, and yes, destroy reputations. In my family, Ray was the sun, and we were all expected to orbit accordingly, but I'd been charting my own course for years, keeping meticulous records along the way. He just didn't know it yet. The Lake Briar Park picnic was supposed to celebrate my aunt and uncle's 40th anniversary. By the time I arrived, Ray had already transformed it into a campaign event. His Kincaid for Commission buttons gleamed on half the lapels present, and he worked the crowd like a politician, not a stepfather. "Avery!" my mother waved from the pavilion. "Help me with the potato salad." I navigated through clusters of relatives and Ray's business associates, noting how the two groups had begun to merge. Construction contractors talking to my cousins about internships, county officials sampling my aunt's famous coleslaw. The trouble started around 2 o'clock. Ray's friend Marcus, already 3 beers deep, announced he was taking his boat out for a spin. I watched him stumble toward the dock, keys jangling. "Someone should stop him," I said to my mother. "Don't make a scene," she whispered back. But I'd seen enough workplace incident reports to know how this ended. I intercepted Marcus at the boat launch. "Hey, Marcus, how about we get some food first? The burgers are ready." "I'm fine," he slurred, brushing past me. I placed myself between him and the boat. "Actually, you're not, and there are families out on the water." That's when Ray materialized, his potential donor, some real estate developer, in tow. "Is there a problem here?" Ray's voice carried that dangerous smoothness I'd learned to recognize. "Marcus has had too much to drink to operate a boat safely," I said simply. Ray's face darkened. "Marcus is a grown man who can make his own decisions. Not when those decisions endanger others." The developer shifted uncomfortably. Others began to notice the confrontation. Ray stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You're embarrassing me. You're embarrassing yourself by enabling this." The slap came fast, not hard enough to knock me down, but sharp enough to snap my head sideways. The sound cracked across the water like a gunshot. Before I could react, he grabbed my arm, shaking me. "You always have to be right, don't you? Always have to make trouble." "Ray!" My mother's cry came from somewhere behind us. He released me, already rearranging his face into concerned paternalism. She was getting hysterical about Marcus. I was just trying to calm her down. My cheek burned. The crowd had gone silent, some looking away, others staring openly. The developer had retreated several steps. "She attacked me," I heard Marcus saying to someone. "Crazy woman." But I saw something else in my peripheral vision. A young woman with a camera, standing by the dessert table. Sadie Rowan, if I remembered correctly. Her father used to partner with Ray before some falling out. She held a black mirrorless camera, and even from 20 feet away, I could see the rapid-fire LED that indicated continuous shooting mode. Ray was already working damage control, his voice carrying across the pavilion. "Family disagreements. You know how it is. Avery's always been high-strung. Her divorce hit her hard, I touched my cheek, feeling the heat there. My arm throbbed where he'd gripped it. But I didn't argue, didn't defend myself. I simply walked to my car, drove to the nearest urgent care clinic, and began documenting everything. Ray thought he'd won. He thought public humiliation would silence me, that family pressure would make me fall in line. He thought his version of events would become the truth. He didn't notice Sadie Rowan lowering her camera, or the way she watched me leave with something like recognition in her eyes. He didn't know that in my world, the truth lived in timestamps and metadata, in medical records and photograph sequences. Most importantly, he didn't know that I'd been waiting for him to show his true face in public. Now he had, and someone had been watching. The urgent care doctor photographed my face from 3 angles. The mark had already darkened to a mottled red, and my upper arm showed the distinct pattern of fingertip bruises. I paid cash, requested copies of everything, and drove home to my apartment where I continued the documentation process. Photos every 2 hours, each file named with date and timestamp. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Hi, Avery. This is Sadie Rowan from yesterday. Are you okay? I have some photos you might want to see." I stared at the message for a full minute before responding. "I'm fine. What kind of photos?" "The kind with metadata intact. Can we meet?" We met at a coffee shop downtown, far from Ray's usual haunts. Sadie looked younger than her 23 years, but her eyes held a sharpness I recognized. "I've been documenting Ray Kincaid for 2 years, she said without preamble, sliding a tablet across the table. Yesterday was just the latest installment. The screen showed an index of folders, each labeled with dates and events. She opened yesterday's. 11 photographs in burst mode, capturing the entire sequence. Ray's hand mid-swing, my head snapping to the side, his grip on my arm, the crowd's shocked faces. Each image crisp, damning, time-stamped to the millisecond. "There's more," Sadie said, pulling out her phone. "Someone else caught this." An 8-second video, slightly shaky but clear enough, audio included. Ray's "You always have to be right" came through perfectly, followed by the unmistakable sound of the slap. Who? My friend's cousin posted it to his Instagram story before deleting it. But I grabbed it first. And there's this. She swiped to another file. Security footage from the park's main pavilion camera. I filed a FOIA request this morning for the full recording. I studied her face. Why are you doing this? Because Ray destroyed my father's business with forged inspection reports. Dad couldn't prove it. Ray was too careful. But I learned to be careful too. I studied journalism, learned about verification, chain of custody, admissible evidence. She gestured at the tablet. This is all backed up to multiple cloud services. By the way, hash values documented. We spent 2 hours building the timeline. Sadie had software that extracted and visualized the metadata. Camera model, lens focal length, GPS coordinates, timestamps synced across all devices. She showed me how to verify the files hadn't been altered, how to create cryptographic checksums that would hold up in court. Ray thinks he's smart because he can doctor construction documents, Sadie said. But he's analog smart. He doesn't understand that digital evidence has 1,000 tongues, and they all speak the truth if you know how to listen. I showed her my documentation routine, the medical records, the methodical photographing of injuries, the secure cloud backups. You're building a legal case, she observed. I'm building multiple cases. The assault is just the visible part, but Ray's got bigger vulnerabilities. The construction fraud? I nodded. Safety reports, inspection logs, payroll records that don't match site entry logs. He's been winning county contracts with falsified documents. Sadie leaned back, a faint smirk curling at the corner of her lips. My dad always said Ray would ruin himself if given enough time. Looks like he's been weaving that net for years. The question is timing, I said, and approach. Well, you've got assault charges as an opener. That gives you a protective order, which means he can't contact or intimidate you while you're building the bigger case. She was right, but I wanted more than just protection. I wanted Ray to understand that his carefully constructed world could collapse with the push of a button. My button. Send me everything, I said. Full resolution, original files. Already uploaded to a shared drive. Check your email. As we left the coffee shop, Sadie paused. He really doesn't know what you do for a living, does he? He thinks I push papers. Well, she said, I guess he's about to learn that papers can push back. That night, I sat at my computer, organizing evidence into folders. Medical, photographic, video, third-party witnesses, and underneath it all, my growing file on Kincaid Builders, where metadata would tell a very different story than the one Ray had been selling to the county. The bruise on my cheek had darkened to purple. In the bathroom mirror, it looked like war paint. Good. I thought, let the battle begin. The investigation became my evening ritual. After my day job ensuring Northbridge Therapeutics followed FDA regulations, I'd come home and apply those same skills to unraveling Ray Kincaid's empire of falsified documents. The patterns emerged quickly once I knew where to look. 3 major county projects, $4.3 million in contracts, all won by Kincaid Builders in the last 18 months. The safety reports read like templates, identical phrasing, same corrective actions taken, even matching typos. Hazard, instead of hazard, appeared in all 3, always in the same paragraph about fall protection. But the real revelation came from cross-referencing payroll records with site entry logs. Ray had been claiming perfect safety records, 0 lost time incidents across all projects, yet workers' names appeared on payroll days after supposedly suffering injuries that, according to his reports, never happened. I pulled up Kincaid Builders' own promotional videos from their Facebook page. Ray loved showing off his projects, posting drone footage and progress updates. The metadata was intact, timestamps, GPS coordinates, even the drone's altitude data. On 3 separate dates when Ray had supposedly conducted personal safety inspections, his own social media placed him at golf tournaments hundreds of miles away. The digital signature on those inspection reports? The same certificate, pixel-perfect matches when overlaid. He'd been copying and pasting his electronic signature like a rubber stamp. I compiled it all into a forensic timeline, color-coded spreadsheets showing the impossibilities, how Ray had apparently been in two places at once, how injured workers had mysteriously healed overnight, how safety improvements were implemented before problems were supposedly discovered. Then I drafted two documents. The first was a petition for a temporary restraining order, straightforward, factual, the assault at Lake Briar Park, supported by medical documentation, photographs, video evidence, and witness contacts. My attorney, Janet Reeves, reviewed it that evening. "This is comprehensive," she said, adjusting her reading glasses. "The metadata authentication is particularly strong. Most people don't think to include cryptographic hashes. I work in compliance. Documentation is my religion. What about the second matter?" She gestured to my laptop screen, where I'd pulled up the construction fraud evidence. "That's not for court. Yet, that's for the county ethics board and the procurement department." Janet studied me. "You're planning a coordinated strike." "I'm planning to tell the truth through the proper channels. What happens after that isn't up to me." She smiled. "Remind me never to falsify documents in your presence." I filed the TRO petition the next morning. That afternoon, I submitted an anonymous report to the County Ethics Board with a carefully curated selection of evidence, enough to trigger an investigation, not enough to reveal my identity. Yet, the construction fraud was clear. 3 projects totaling $4.3 million, falsified safety reports with copied signatures, injury underreporting to maintain preferred contractor status, timeline impossibilities proven by metadata, current bid for a $2.1 million municipal complex renovation. I also sent a copy to the county procurement office with a note about concerns regarding vendor compliance with safety reporting requirements. That evening, my phone rang. "Mom." "Ray's very upset," she began without preamble. "He says you filed some kind of charges?" "Avery, he's under so much stress with the campaign. He assaulted me in front of 50 witnesses. Mom." "He was trying to calm you down. You were making such a fuss about Marcus." "I have video evidence, Mom, multiple angles, with audio." Silence. "This vindictiveness isn't like you," she finally said. "Neither is being slapped in public, but here we are." "He's already facing some kind of county investigation. Something about his contracts. Did you have anything to do with that?" "How would I know anything about his contracts?" "Don't play games with me, Avery. I know what you do for a living." "Do you? Because Ray seems to think I just push paper." "He's going to lose everything." Her voice had gone small. "He's going to lose what he built on lies. There's a difference." She hung up. I sat in my apartment, looking at the wall of evidence I'd assembled. Folders within folders. Backups of backups. Everything time-stamped and verified. Ray had built his kingdom on the assumption that no one would look too closely, that his word would always carry more weight than documented fact. He was about to learn that in my world, the world of compliance and verification, metadata doesn't care about your reputation. Timestamps don't respect your authority, and cryptographic hashes are immune to campaign slogans. The restraining order hearing was scheduled for next week. The ethics investigation would take longer, but the procurement office had already flagged Kincaid Builders' pending bid for additional review. I touched the fading bruise on my cheek, in trying to silence me with violence. Ray had given me exactly what I needed, a public forum where truth would be measured not in influence or intimidation, but in evidence. And I had evidence in abundance. Ray's counteroffensive began within 48 hours. I started hearing from relatives I hadn't spoken to in months, all with the same talking points. Avery was drinking heavily at the picnic, my cousin Diane told her book club, despite the fact I'd had exactly 1 beer 4 hours before the incident. "She's been unstable since the divorce," Uncle Pete informed his poker buddies, though my divorce had been 3 years ago and entirely amicable. "She actually grabbed Marcus first," became the story Ray told his construction crew. "I was just protecting my friend." The family group chat, which I'd muted months ago, apparently lit up with messages about keeping family business private and not airing dirty laundry. My mother forwarded me screenshots. perhaps thinking they'd shame me into dropping the charges. Instead, I forwarded them to Janet. "Document everything," she advised. "This pattern of intimidation and false statements will only strengthen your case." Sadie texted me updates from her network. "Ray's telling people you're trying to sabotage his campaign out of jealousy. Says you can't stand to see him succeed." I found it almost amusing. Ray's entire defense strategy seemed built on the assumption that everyone would believe his word over documented evidence. It was like watching someone try to argue with a photograph. My mother appeared at my apartment on Thursday evening, uninvited. "We need to talk," she said, pushing past me into the living room. She looked haggard, her usually perfect makeup creased with worry lines. "Ray's under investigation by the county," she said without preamble. "His lawyer says someone filed a complaint about his contracts. Was it you?" Complaints can be filed by anyone who notices discrepancies in public records. "Don't play word games with me. Avery, his company could go under. We could lose everything." "You could lose everything Ray built through fraud." She flinched. "You don't understand how hard he works." "I understand exactly how he works. I've seen the documents. Safety reports copy-pasted across multiple projects. Digital signatures that are pixel-perfect matches. Workers' compensation claims that mysteriously disappear from his reports. Those are just paperwork errors." "Mom, he claimed to personally inspect sites when his own social media shows he was playing golf in Arizona. That's not a paperwork error. That's fraud." She sank into my couch, suddenly looking older. "What do you want me to say? That I know? That I've always known Ray cuts corners?" The admission hung between us. "I want you to stop enabling him," I said quietly. "I want you to stop making excuses for a man who hit me in public and is now lying about it. He's my husband. And I'm your daughter." She left without answering that. The next morning, Janet called with news. "Ray's attorney contacted me. They want to settle out of court. Drop the criminal charges, sign an NDA, and they'll pay your medical expenses plus a modest sum for your trouble." "How modest?" $10,000. I laughed. "He's trying to buy my silence for less than he spends on a golf weekend?" "It's an opening offer. But Avery, you should know. They're planning to argue you were intoxicated and aggressive if this goes to trial. They've got 2 witnesses lined up who'll testify you were stumbling around, slurring your words. Let me guess, both on Ray's payroll? One's his foreman, the other's Marcus. The same Marcus who was too drunk to stand upright? That's their star witness? They're betting on relationships over evidence. Ray's a prominent businessman, established in the community. I'm a compliance officer with 11 photographs, an 8-second video, medical documentation, and multiple independent witnesses including security footage from the park." "Exactly. Which is why I think they'll increase their offer once they realize you won't fold." But I wasn't interested in Ray's money. I emailed Janet my response. No settlement, no NDA, full prosecution. That evening, I got another text from Sadie. "Heads up, Ray's spreading word that you've been harassing his business, trying to destroy his reputation. My dad heard from 3 contractors today who said Ray warned them about you being vindictive and unstable." I saved the screenshot. Every lie Ray told now was just more evidence of his pattern of behavior. He thought he was playing offense, but he was really just providing me with more ammunition. I opened my laptop and reviewed the timeline I'd built. The restraining order hearing was in 3 days. The county ethics investigation was ongoing. The procurement review had escalated. I'd heard through professional channels that Kincaid Builders was now flagged for comprehensive audit. Ray was fighting the war he understood. Public opinion, family pressure, intimidation through relationships. He didn't realize I was fighting a different war entirely. One where evidence mattered more than reputation, where metadata couldn't be intimidated, and where every lie he told left a digital trail. Truth in Calibri 10. Font meets truth in EXIF data, I murmured, remembering the phrase from my notes. Ray was about to learn the difference, the morning of the restraining order hearing. I dressed carefully, professional but not severe, minimal makeup that wouldn't hide the fading bruise. Janet met me outside the courthouse. "Ray's here with 2 attorneys," she said. "They're going to push the intoxication angle hard. Let them—" The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected, more functional than dramatic. Ray sat at the defendant's table, wearing his best suit and his campaign face, concerned, respectable, burdened by false accusations. His lead attorney, a silver-haired man named Brennan, opened with exactly the narrative we'd expected. Ms. Hale had been drinking throughout the day. Multiple witnesses observed her aggressive behavior toward Mr. Marcus Chen, a family friend who simply wanted to enjoy the lake. When my client attempted to de-escalate the situation, Janet stood. "Your Honor, we have video evidence that directly contradicts this narrative." The monitor flickered to life. 8 seconds of crystal-clear footage. Ray's voice. "You always have to be right, don't you? Always have to make trouble." The slap, my head snapping sideways, the gasps from onlookers. The courtroom fell silent. "Additionally," Janet continued, "we have a sequence of 11 high-resolution photographs capturing the entire incident." She clicked through them methodically. "Note the timestamps. These images span 3.7 seconds, showing the defendant's hand in motion, making contact, and the plaintiff's reaction." Brennan tried to recover, a moment of frustration during a family dispute. "We also have medical documentation." The urgent care photos appeared. Facial contusion and grip bruising on the upper arm, consistent with assault. Judge Harrison, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes, studied the evidence. "Mr. Brennan, do you have any evidence supporting your client's version of events?" "We have witness statements." "I asked for evidence, not hearsay. Do you have photos, video, medical documentation showing Ms. Hale was intoxicated?" Brennan shuffled papers. "Marcus Chen will testify." "The same Marcus Chen who was attempting to operate a boat while intoxicated? Do you have breathalyzer results? Blood tests? Anything beyond the word of interested parties?" The hearing lasted another 20 minutes, but the outcome was clear. Judge Harrison granted the restraining order for 1 year, ordering Ray to stay 500 feet away from me and pay my legal fees. "Mr. Kincaid," the judge said before dismissing us, "I've reviewed a lot of evidence in my career. Rarely have I seen an assault so thoroughly documented. You might want to consider that in your future interactions." Ray's face had gone dark red, but he said nothing. 2 hours later, across town, a very different proceeding was underway. The County Procurement Review Board met in a bland conference room that smelled of burnt coffee and government efficiency. I wasn't there. Couldn't be, since my complaint was anonymous, but Sadie attended as a concerned citizen and texted me updates. "Kincaid Builders up now. Compliance officer presenting findings." The next text included a photo, a projection screen showing side-by-side safety reports, identical sections highlighted in yellow. "They're going through the metadata, showing how reports dated weeks apart were created in the same computer session. Then, they just showed his social media. Golf tournament in Phoenix same day he inspected the watershed project. Room is silent." 20 minutes later, board chair asking about injured workers who appear on payroll after supposedly 0 lost time incidents. Ray's lawyer objecting to trial by ambush. Chair responding that this is a review, not a trial. If Kincaid wants to explain discrepancies, now's the time. A longer pause, then Ray trying to blame administrative confusion and overzealous bookkeeping, board not buying it. The final text came an hour later. "Kincaid Builders suspended from county vendor list pending investigation. 2.1 Municipal complex, but rejected. County Attorney's Office will review for possible criminal charges." I sat in my apartment, watching the sunset paint Fairmont Ridge in shades of amber and shadow. My phone buzzed with messages. Relatives suddenly remembering they'd always thought Ray was a bit aggressive. Reporters seeking comments about the prominent contractor's legal troubles. My mother's number calling repeatedly without leaving voicemails. The local news led with Ray's suspension from county contracts. They'd gotten hold of his statement from the morning's hearing, where he'd claimed I was conducting a witch hunt against him. The reporter noted dryly that the procurement board's findings were based on documentary evidence, not personal vendettas. That evening, Sadie came by with a bottle of wine. "Did you see Ray's press release?" she asked, pulling it up on her phone. "He's blaming cancel culture and vindictive individuals who can't handle strong leadership." "He still doesn't get it," I said. "He thinks this is about personality, about relationships. He can't comprehend that his own documents convicted him." "My dad sends his regards. By the way, says Ray's subcontractors are already jumping ship. Apparently, banks get nervous when you're under criminal investigation." We clinked glasses, but I didn't feel celebratory, just tired, and ready for it to be over. But I knew Ray. He wouldn't accept defeat gracefully. The real explosion was still coming. The dominoes fell faster than even I had anticipated. First came the banks, Regional Savings and Loan, which held Kincaid Builders' primary credit line, issued a notice of review citing reputational risk and compliance concerns. In plain English, they were calling in their loans, $300,000 in operating credit, due within 30 days. Then the subcontractors. Sadie forwarded me screenshots from contractor forums where Ray's partners distanced themselves. Effective immediately, Larson Electric is suspending all joint ventures with Kincaid Builders pending resolution of legal matters. But the real blow came from the state attorney's office. The county had forwarded their findings, and prosecutors smelled blood, document fraud, filing false reports, obstruction for attempting to delete internal logs after Janet's preservation letter, a detail that emerged when IT consultants found timestamp discrepancies in Kincaid's server backups. My phone rang constantly. I let them all go to voicemail except one. "Avery?" My mother's voice was hollow. "Ray's been arrested. They're charging him with 8 counts of document fraud and 2 counts of obstruction." "I know. His lawyer says the evidence is overwhelming. Something about digital signatures and metadata. I don't understand it all." He copied and pasted his signature on safety reports for sites he never visited. He claimed workers were healthy when they were filing injury claims. He deleted files after being told to preserve them. It's not complicated. Mom, he lied, and he got caught. The house? We might lose the house. It's collateral on the business loans. I said nothing. What was there to say? "Are you happy?" she asked, a edge of bitterness creeping in. "You've destroyed him." "He destroyed himself. I just refused to let him destroy me too." The campaign donors abandoned ship that evening. The committee to elect Ray Kincaid issued a terse statement. "In light of recent developments, we are withdrawing our support and returning all donations to contributors." Channel 7 caught Ray leaving the courthouse after posting bail. He looked haggard, his campaign confidence replaced by something raw and desperate. A reporter shoved a microphone at him. "Mr. Kincaid, do you have any comment on the criminal charges?" Ray stopped, even through the TV screen. I could see the moment his control snapped. "This is about that picnic," he snarled. "One incident, just one little slap, and suddenly everyone's out to get me. You want to know the truth? She had it coming. She's always been trouble. Always." His lawyer grabbed his arm, pulling him toward the car, but the damage was done. "Just one little slap. On camera. On record." Janet called within minutes. "Did you see?" "I saw." "That's a confession. Avery, on the assault charge. He just admitted it on live television." The next morning's paper led with Ray's meltdown. The headline read, "Contractor admits assault while facing fraud charges." They ran a still from the video. Ray's face contorted with rage, his finger pointing at the camera. Subcontractors officially severed ties. 3 major projects ground to a halt. The insurance company launched its own investigation into potential claims fraud. Even Marcus, his loyal drinking buddy, distanced himself with a public statement about being shocked by these revelations. By week's end, Kincaid Builders had filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy. The house my mother loved so much, renovated with Ray's dirty money, went on the market. Ray's name disappeared from the Planning Commission candidate list. I received an email from the prosecutor's office, Would I testify about the assault, given Ray's public confession? Of course, I replied. I had documentation ready. My mother moved in with my aunt. We hadn't spoken since Ray's arrest, but Aunt Helen called to say Mom was adjusting. She didn't pass the phone over. Sadie met me for coffee the day the bankruptcy was finalized. 40 years building that company, she mused. Gone in 2 weeks. It was built on lies. The fall was always going to be fast once someone looked closely. My dad wants to meet you, by the way. Says anyone who can take down Ray Kincaid with a spreadsheet and some photo metadata deserves a handshake. I smiled, but it felt hollow. I'd won. Absolutely and completely. Ray was facing jail time, financial ruin, and social exile. His own words had confirmed his guilt. The evidence had been unassailable. But sitting there, I mostly felt tired. Justice isn't as satisfying as revenge fantasies suggest. It's just necessary. What's next? Sadie asked. The criminal trial, my testimony. Then, I don't know. Maybe I'll take a vacation. Somewhere without family picnics. She laughed. I hear the weather's nice in places where no one's ever heard of Ray Kincaid. Outside the coffee shop window, construction crews worked on a new office building. Not Kincaid's crew. They'd scattered to other companies, other jobs. The crane bore a different logo now. Ray had thought he could build an empire on forged documents and intimidation. He'd thought he could slap me silent in front of 50 witnesses and face no consequences. He'd been wrong about everything, but especially about one thing: the power of truth, properly documented and delivered at exactly the right time. The courthouse press room was packed. Ray's criminal trial had drawn media attention. Local contractors' spectacular fall from grace, complete with fraud, assault, and a public confession. I sat in the witness waiting room, reviewing my notes one final time. Janet squeezed my shoulder. Remember, just the facts. Let the evidence speak. When they called my name, I walked into the courtroom with steady steps. Ray sat at the defendant's table, diminished somehow. His expensive suit couldn't hide the defeat in his posture. He wouldn't meet my eyes. The prosecutor walked me through the assault, the events at the picnic, the medical documentation, the photographic evidence. I kept my answers precise, clinical, just the facts. Then came Ray's attorney on cross-examination. Ms. Hale, isn't it true you harbored resentment toward my client? I harbored documentation of his fraudulent activities. That's not what I asked. I harbored 11 photographs, 8 seconds of video, medical records, and witness statements. Whatever feelings I had are irrelevant to the evidence. The jury watched the video, studied the photos, examined the metadata. Several jurors flinched at the sound of the slap. But the real destruction came during the fraud portion of the trial. Prosecutors presented my anonymous complaint alongside their expanded investigation. Safety reports overlaid to show identical language. Digital signatures magnified to reveal pixel-perfect matches. Ray's social media posts contrasted with his inspection claims. The prosecutor pulled up one final piece of evidence, the press conference where Ray had snarled just one little slap into the cameras. Mr. Kincaid, the prosecutor said during closing arguments, built his success on the assumption that his word mattered more than the truth. But in our digital age, the truth leaves traces, timestamps, metadata, pixels that don't lie. Ms. Hale understood something Mr. Kincaid never grasped, that in the end, evidence speaks louder than ego. The jury deliberated for 2 hours, guilty on all counts. At sentencing, the judge addressed Ray directly. Mr. Kincaid, you held positions of trust as a contractor, as a potential public official, as a family member. You violated all of them. Your assault on Miss Hale wasn't just physical violence. It was an attempt to silence someone who threatened to expose your broader pattern of deception. 18 months in state prison, 3 years probation, restitution to the county for fraudulent contracts, a permanent ban on bidding for public projects. As court security led Ray away, he finally looked at me. For a moment, I saw something flicker in his eyes. Not remorse, exactly. but perhaps understanding. He'd played by the old rules, where power and intimidation could bury inconvenient truths. He'd lost to the new rules, where every action leaves a digital footprint and every lie creates its own evidence trail. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited. I'd prepared a statement. Today's verdict isn't about revenge, it's about accountability. We live in an age where truth can be verified, where documents tell stories, where metadata doesn't forget. No one, regardless of their position or power, is above these facts. My mother stood at the edge of the crowd. We hadn't spoken in months. She looked older, smaller somehow. Our eyes met across the distance. She nodded once, not forgiveness, exactly, but acknowledgement, then turned and walked away. Sadie waited by my car. How do you feel? Ready to move on? That's it? No celebration? I thought about it. He's going to prison. His company's gone. His reputation's destroyed. His own words convicted him. What's left to celebrate? She studied me. You did what my father couldn't. You got justice. I got documentation, I corrected. Justice was just the side effect of good record keeping. That evening, I sat in my apartment, looking at the external hard drive that contained all the evidence. Hundreds of files, thousands of hours. One comprehensive truth that had brought down a man who thought himself untouchable. I labeled the drive Lake Briar and filed it away. Some stories need preserving, even after they end. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I almost deleted it, then noticed the area code from the prosecutor's office. Ms. Hale, thought you should know. 3 other contractors came forward after seeing the trial coverage. Seems Ray wasn't the only one falsifying safety reports. Would you consider consulting on document analysis? I smiled. A real smile this time. Ray had thought my expertise in compliance was just pushing paper. He'd learned too late that papers, properly pushed, could topple kingdoms built on lies. In the end, that picnic by the lake had changed everything. Ray had struck me down in front of 50 witnesses, thinking his power made him untouchable. He hadn't noticed the young woman with the camera, capturing truth one frame at a time. He hadn't understood that in our digital age, every document tells a story, every file has a fingerprint, and every lie leaves evidence. Most importantly, he hadn't known that I'd spent 7 years learning to read those stories, decode those fingerprints, and present that evidence in ways that no amount of influence could refute. Just one little slap, he'd said on camera. Just one little slap that had brought down an empire built on forged signatures and false reports. Sometimes that's all it takes. One moment of truth, properly documented, delivered at exactly the right time. Justice served, courtesy of metadata and a compliance officer who refused to be silenced. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where you're tuning in from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. What would you have done in Avery's situation? Looking forward to reading your perspectives.